Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It's been a busy week. I put out quite a few videos this week. One sponsored one pre-recorded one, and a bunch of 14 related stuff, including State of the Realm. It's been a good week. Over on the Twitch side of things as well, so I'm in a particularly good mood. And it hasn't just been busy on this channel. After everything that went down with P8S and all the extra hours I was spending and being live 12 hours a day and blah, 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 blah with the raid tier, I got around to finally just planning out like a month of uploads over on the VOD channel. So Dio Field is in full swing. That'll gradually upload over the next several weeks. Valkyrie Elysium, same with that. Count Up, Final Fantasy IV, the rest of Pixel Remaster should already be there by now. Final Fantasy IV 3D is in the process of uploading now, and I'm working through After Years on stream, so those are going to be going up soon. I'm actually going to take care of that right after this. The rest of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I also have an Elden Ring run that's up there that needs to be scheduled, as well as Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition, the DLC for that. And I have the Hildebrand quest going up. I'm going to be having some of my old Endwalker stuff going up as well, like my initial playthroughs of Endwalker. And so, yeah, I'm playing catch up with that, and I'm trying to make sure that it's just loaded with stuff, so when I have new stuff to put on there, it just kind of gets added on top of that, because there's months and months and months of streams that need to go up there since I've done it, because I think my last upload was like it was right before P8, not P8S, but right before Savage came out, pretty much right before patch 6.2 came out. It was when I like stopped getting the uploads done for that. So I took a day and I just went nuts with it. I'm going to spend another day after this is done working on that. And I already looked, and it doesn't look like there's too many questions this week, probably because my feed has been spamming people. So sorry about that. But I should have plenty of time tonight to really crack through all those, get thumbnails done, make sure it's all up, just all set. So if you have not subscribed to the VOD channel and you want to see Dio Field, Valkyrie Elysium, Xenoblade 3, Star Ocean 6 demo, Harvestella is going to be coming up, Star Ocean 6 the actual game, Strangers of Paradise DLC is going to be coming up. All of that's going to be uploaded, and a lot of it already has been uploaded as long as the game's out and I've played it already. So, we should get to the Q&A. Thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. They don't have to support us, but they do. Really appreciate that, especially with everything that's been going on with me over the past several years. It has been a big, big help. So, you know, you guys are champions. And don't forget, we got SteelSeries and Advanced GG. Advanced GG, my 30%, I think I mentioned it last week. My 30% code's not working currently. In fact, while I'm looking at last week's description, I might as well just edit it now, because it should be Mrhappy, just Mrhappy or Mrhappy 10 should do the trick to save 10%. Yeah, it's not supposed to be all the time, but because I just launched with them, we had that 30% code running for a little bit. So yeah, don't forget to check the affiliates and the sponsors below the video as well, because those also support. And if you're interested in those products, then you might as well save some money on them. So with that, let's get into the Q&A, shall we? Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Hey, Haps. Hello. Hope you're doing well in the imminent Criterion proc will treat you well. Yes, I have a group all set for that, so we will be doing plenty of videos on that this week. The recent OCP comment about the design of Barbaricha EX being less complicated mechanically and more fast-paced stuff. What are your thoughts on this type of fight design? I actually like it more than puzzles and big brain moves. I think it depends, because any design used too frequently gets kind of stale, and we've seen that a lot, especially in Stormblood, where every fight kind of had the exact same overall structure, even if it didn't have the same mechanics. That being said, I particularly like Barbaricha Extreme. I think it's one of the better extremes they've released. Not quite at the tippy top of the tier. And I think the best fights they have done are not this style of fight. I think this isn't a style they're particularly adept at. But this is proof that they're doing better with it. Now it's a matter of applying that to other extreme trials, even applying it to normal mode content, which Barbaricha normal mode did a pretty good job of. So I think I'd like to see them continue to experiment with this kind of encounter and maybe nail it down a little bit more. But it was good. I really liked it, and I hope to continue seeing encounters like that in the future. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey Haps, hope everyone is doing well. Don't worry, I make the S and D mistake on my keyboard all the time. I'm playing a lot of Dark Knight. I've only been hitting gray and green parses. Got any advice for hitting a better parse? I think I might be drifting my OG CDs, but I didn't think the 2-minute window would make it that low. I know parses don't mean everything, but I want to get better. Dark Knight generally just needs... Oh, hi Ivy. I guess you want to know about Dark Knight as well. Realistically with Dark Knight, it's just about making sure you're pressing all your buttons all the time. A lot of people like to say it's very face roll, but your 2-minute windows get incredibly busy. You just got to make sure you're A, making really good use of pot windows, B, not holding on to things or having things drift because you're too late to use them, and C, just practice. I mean, Dark Knight, fortunately, doesn't have any of its own damage buffs to worry about. It really just needs to capitalize on other people's damage buffs. So when it comes to your R DPS contribution, you really are just kind of looking from within to try to nail what you're doing yourself. But to help other people's R DPS contribution, you need to have a good A DPS contribution. So if I were you, I'd focus on your A DPS contribution if you're looking at that in particular, and focus on just bringing that up. But it's one of those things where I'm not a Dark Knight main, so I'm only regurgitating things that I've been told by Dark Knight mains. And B, without actually seeing what you're doing wrong, there's no good way for a person to give you advice without actually seeing what you're doing wrong. For all I know, you might not mention it here, but you might freeze up when mechanics come out and stop pressing GCDs. And I wouldn't know that, and you haven't said anything like that. Not saying you are doing that, just saying without seeing it, I wouldn't know. There is XIV analysis as well. That's a website where if you put in a log, it will point out crucial mistakes that you're making. It's sometimes overly critical of some things because no matter what, nobody plays perfect, so you can't read too deep into it. But if you are someone who's in that gray green, it has a lot more useful advice because it's likely not harsh advice, just honest advice. So XIV analysis will probably be your best bet for now, and then to just make sure you're studying the Dark Knight resources that are available out there. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello there. Hi. This is my first expansion. I was working through all my jobs to 90. I wondered if SE ever gave a reason as to why they ditched job quests. For a multitude of reasons. Number one, the stories were kind of already at their end. New jobs need story quests. But old jobs, it was just like, no, we really did finish the stories for those jobs. Like, we could just make up another conflict, I guess. But it's really nice how we tied a lot of these up in a bow. Some of them better than others, in all honesty. The other reason is, as they add more jobs to the game, the feasibility of doing a unique job quest for every single one and a series of job quests for every single one just goes down. So the role quests became the new investment, and I really do like the role quests. I think the Shadowbringers ones are better than the Endwalker ones, but I do like the concept of them, and I do want to see them continue to go down that road as opposed to individual job quests. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Sorry. And to do that real quick, I started swallowing spit in the middle of my hello. Hi, hello, hi. I'm concerned for the future grows of the game. Okay, started in Shadowbringers, almost quit because it felt so overwhelming with all the stuff to do and unlock. Probably didn't help to get dropped off in Limsa. That never helps. So this will be a problem because it will scare away new players. It will only get worse with every patch. WoW, for example, doesn't really have this problem because everything before the last expansion is basically irrelevant. However, it's also a good thing about Final Fantasy that old content isn't just rotting in a corner. I think Yoshi P himself has said this is going to be an issue they'll have to tackle more directly at some point, because as much as they try to make it easier to do the old content or make it so you can purchase skips and things like that, they don't want a game where you have to buy a skip. So I think what we're likely to see at some point is a level crunch, and along with a level crunch, they'll do a story crunch. And let me make sure I state this correctly. What I think they'll do is basically give you the ability to start the game at a later point in the story while still having to go through the current story. So like, let's say in 7.0, they add a 2.0 to 6.0 crunch mode, where when you start the game, you can choose to just start in a story point that's later, and it'll give you an overview of everything that happened in 2.0 to 6.0. If you want to skip that and just go into the game, great. But I think that is the realistic solution. Now, I'm not describing it very well, but I think a lot of people who are more familiar with the game understand what I mean. And Yoshida himself has explained a concept like this in the past, albeit much better than I am explaining it now. So that, I think, is going to be the answer. Not to erase everything, not to make it irrelevant, not to try to wipe it off the face of the earth, but to give a player the option to start from a later point, because realistically, there's a good chance that when they're bored, they'll go back and do the old stuff if they really want to know anyway. So without a skip, also, again, mind you, without a skip, I'm saying they'll do this, but we'll have to wait and see. We don't know when that'll be. We don't know how exactly it'll be incorporated, and we know they're not going to get rid of skips anytime soon, so how the actual leveling process goes through that is a bit of a question as well. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Heyo! Hope you're doing well. Same to you. With the announcement of the new North American data center, I've been thinking about making an alt, mainly to have an excuse of engaging with the old content changes from a fresh perspective. Hey, I've done that. It was a lot of fun. Which sounds fun to mess around at least for a bit. Also, at least to check out a different starting city. You can do that without making a new character, but I see what you're saying. It also got me thinking about the incentives, especially the gil ones, which I could probably make better use of for my main rather than my disposable alt. Now, you think that, but it's nice to have an alt that has some gil on it, because you just never know when A, you'll be too lazy to get gil from your other character, or B, when you'll just decide that you need this alt for something and you have the extra gil on it. The only option, because I know what your next question is before I even read it. So I was wondering, is it allowed to try and funnel that to my main? Yeah, I mean, just that's what people do. They data center travel, or most people won't have it on a different data center, so they won't have to go through this much trouble. But yeah, it's just data center travel, and you need to, you need to, because you can't trade yourself unless you have two different accounts. You need to trade it to somebody who you trust and then trade it to yourself. Because it's not like you can go to another data center, join their FC, throw it in the FC chest or anything like that. You can't add yourself as a friend. So you need an intermediary, but yeah, there's nothing against this. All the gil you own on your account belongs to your account. As long as it's not being bought or generated or cheated through in some way, it's all yours. It's just a matter of where it's placed. So there's nothing against the terms of service, making a new character, playing the game, earning the reward that you are offered fairly within the game, and then giving that reward to another character. There's nothing against it. Hashtag Happy Mondays with the Mister. Damn right. Hi, hello, Haps. Hi, hope the vibes are immaculate. I didn't know vibes could be immaculate, but it gets me to say immaculate, so I'm okay with it. Is there a weird old JRPG system or mechanic that you would like to see a modern team take a crack at? I don't know what League of Legaia was. I don't know that League of Legaia was very good, but I still think about the whole directional combo battle system and wonder if something cool could be done with it. So this is tough because I played a lot of classic RPGs, and I think even some of the most tried and true systems can still be improved upon to this day or innovated on up until this day. For example, the ATB system, I've replayed through the old Final Fantasy games, and they each have different pros and cons when it comes to the ATB system. And the turn-based system, you have the Final Fantasy X style of individual turns and tracking whose turn it is next. And then you have the old school style, which is more like Dragon Quest, the early Final Fantasies, where you pick everyone's actions and it's based on speed. Over time, we've seen old JRPG systems come back, improve, and it's never crazy different, but it always feels different with even the smallest of changes. So an old JRPG system that I want to see a modern team take a crack at, I really don't have much of one, because I appreciate the systems for what they were, and I like to see teams evolve. Like the Dress Spheres in 10.2. I may not like 10.2, but the Dress Sphere system is great and unique. But would I want to see a modern team, take a crack at that? No, I don't think I would. I think if I really want that experience, I'll play it in 10.2. Maybe I would prefer to have that system in a game I like more. That's about it. Lightning Returns, going to another Final Fantasy game. Not that old, but I really like the way they handled the single player party system, where you are the only party member, but you're given all the tools that a full party might have via the swapping, I guess similar. It's kind of like a Dress Sphere system. Doesn't work even remotely the same. But then, you go back and you think of like Chrono Trigger, for example. I got to see my modern Chrono Trigger. I Am Setsuna didn't really do it for me, but Lost Sphere as a modern Chrono Trigger style adaptation added a lot more freedom, a lot more innovation to it, and it worked really well. So, but I would have never asked for that. It's just nice to see when it does happen. So I'm kind of torn, because I have seen old systems come back and be worse, and I've seen old systems come back and be better. And I kind of just like to take every experience as it comes. It's kind of a non-answer, but I've given you some examples of things that I've liked at the very least, so you can get an idea of the kind of the gameplay mechanics I'm looking at when I think of a question like this. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how's it going? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. With the relic weapons coming soon, I was wondering where they fit in the Raid EX crafted weapon power scaling. So we don't know exactly. There's always the chance they do things different than previous expansions, but these should be the same item level as EX weapons. I don't remember if Shadowbringers ones had 5 melding slots though, because we had melding slots early on. We don't get the stat customization till later. And so, yeah, I think they were 615 with 5 melded slots. If they might not have had melded slots, they might have just had stats. You know, my memory of it's not super great, even though I did every Shadowbringers relic. They should be item level wise equivalent to EX trial weapons, and they shouldn't be the best weapons for everyone until the end of the expansion. You know, I know that in X.55, yeah, X.55, they become stronger than the raid weapon. What about before then? They're really just good for alt jobbing before then, or people who don't do hardcore prog or don't really do a lot of gear collection normally, like through tomestones and whatnot, or through Savage or anything like that. But they are not a replacement really for anything. It's just an option until you get to the end of the chain, at which point it becomes the best weapon. But it's the best weapon by the time it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Now, I will say this. There is one thing to consider. When we actually, I kind of wish they would be 605 to some degree, because sometimes these weapons end up being best in slot for old ultimates. And the reason for that is because later on, they tend to not have meld slots. So sometimes there are individual steps that match the item level of an ultimate. And for that reason, they're just good regardless, because they'll be the same as a raid weapon, usually with even better substat spreads. But eventually, once they have the meld slots taken away and we just customize the stats, they become incredibly strong, especially if all light people have them, for ultimate proc, because you don't have to worry, even when you sink down, you don't have to worry about the meld slots being removed like you would with other pieces. So there's a few different things to manage, but here at the start, it should just be about equal to the extreme trial weapon. Better if it has more slots. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hope you're doing all right. Was wondering if you have any favorite rabbit holes you stumbled across or funny conspiracy theories. Now, I'm assuming you mean with Final Fantasy XIV. Although I guess with rabbit holes, that's a very different side of the 14 community. You know what? Never mind. We're going to move on from that. No, I try to keep everything up here because it's really easy to fall down a rabbit hole. There's so much information on the internet nowadays that it's easy to just kind of get wrapped up in everything that's happening and just put yourself in a spot where you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until you find that you're just spending time on things that are not going to make your life better, but are just like eating like worms eating at your brain. It's one of the big reasons why I try to avoid certain platforms like TikTok, because TikTok is literally a platform that is designed to be a rabbit hole. It's designed to get you to stay there for hours and hours, and then as it starts feeding you your recommendations, you kind of dig deeper and deeper into these topics. And I always just think, what could I be doing with my time? What could I be doing that's better? What could I be doing that would make my life better, or the lives of the people around me, or just something that does good for the world? And for that reason, I just try to stay away from these things. Like maybe a funny one about a video game, like, you know, I don't know, what's a good example? I've had tons of like tinfoil hat theories for 14 in the past. And sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. I remember I did a video on who the woman in the Stormblood trailer was before we knew for certain. And I said, and what ended up being my last guess, I was like, and this is the one I don't think it is, but it's possible, ended up being the correct answer. So like I tend to do that, but that's about as far as it ever goes for me. I don't have any other rabbit holes or funny conspiracy theories that I kind of dig into. But I had teachers in high school that did, and that made for some interesting classes. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi. Do you have any tips for how to quickly learn and stay consistent on mechanics? Ooh, this is down to every individual person. For some reason, I had massive issues with Devour on day one. You and a lot of other people. Trust me. But after enough time practice, all mechanics in both phases of P8S were basically muscle memory by week 2 and 3. So I think everyone has a weakness. My weakness right now is actually Dominion on P8S phase 2. I know exactly what to do. I could repeat it to you. But when I'm in the middle of it, the colors and the way the whole mechanic like interacts, it's a bit of an overload for my brain. Not because it's complex, not because it's difficult, but visually something like it visually blasts my brain and I go like in and out like blanking. And it's a mechanic that is, I don't know. It's really weird to describe. And it's been really demoralizing the past several weeks. When I get there, I start my 2-minute window. I know exactly where I'm supposed to go, and I just lose it, like in the middle of it. And sometimes we wipe, sometimes we don't, but it shouldn't happen. Normally I have weaknesses. Another weakness of mine historically was either mirror or half room AoEs that come from the outside, you know, like Cloud of Darkness, you know, there's a half room AoE from the boss, there's a half room AoE from one of the clones, and there's a half room AoE from another clone, and there's there's an eighth of the room that's safe. That used to be a big problem, but I practiced that enough and I've overcome that. I can do those style mechanics really easily now. But Dominion's been taking me a little bit longer, despite it being a super easy mechanic. It's just the visuals of it. All the earth laid on top of the ground that's the same color as the earth, and the pulsing of the dust off the ground. Something about it just messes with my brain. I think that's all you're referring to with Devour here. I think we all have raid weaknesses, and it's just a matter of taking the extra time to understand what it is that we are struggling with, and just prepare. Just put more effort into it before raid, after raid, whatever. I think that's really the only answer, because it sounds like you don't need help learning and staying consistent, because you said you got P8S down pretty quick. You know, you might be poor sleep prep, it might be poor meal plans for hardcore prog, but realistically, we all learn at a different pace. We all learn a different way, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. We have visual learners, we have audible learners, there's all sorts of things. And so I wouldn't beat yourself up too much, because you just sound like a human, and that's it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Greetings and salutations. Hello. By the time you read this question, I'll be at Elemental level 60 in Eureka and would like to know what logos and items I should bring with me to BA. That is not a question that could be answered so broadly when you just say DPS. So that very much depends on which DPS you are. Ranged physical DPS have it super easy. One of them normally brings something like, you know, the radar attack, I forget what it's called, in order to find traps. And otherwise, it's like Fiend Hunter and Eagle Eye Shot. Then it's about knowing what percentage of the boss's health it's worth using Eagle Eye Shot at, and then how to adjust your rotation, plus understanding it generates all that enmity. For casters, you know, they want to do, what is it, Magic Burst? And I think Magic Burst is the big one, and the other one is their Wisdom, whatever the caster with the hardcore caster Wisdom is. The problem is these parts are all very, very expensive. What you're best off doing is looking through a BA Discord, I should say, and they will usually have a cheap and expensive option. People who are new, who are learning it, do not go with the expensive options, because they are likely to die, and if you die, then the expensive option is kind of a waste. The players who are really good and consistent and do it all the time, they bring the expensive ones, because they are probably not going to die. Or if they die, it's because they played so well, they like pulled aggro or something. Like that's happened to me with Eagle Eye Shot, because it generates bonus enmity. So you'd rather not go too crazy. But again, it depends on which DPS you're playing. Like if you've never done melee DPS in there, I wouldn't recommend you go a double edge build, which is really the common melee build, because you might just not know how to manage it. You also probably aren't going to do infinite double edge, which I know is a big thing for Ozma speed kills later on. And so there's just all these elements and layers to it. So maybe come back with a more specific question, but my recommendation would be to instead seek out that information on BA Discords or Eureka Discords as a whole. Oh, the previous question, bring Remembered. Bring that. That's the one that just gives you a chance to resurrect. At the very least, you need that active. So don't forget Spirit of the Remembered. As for the question in front of us, hashtag Happy with Mr. Mondays. Hi. Hey, Happy. How's it going? Hi. Tell Aloha I said aloha. Well, Ivy's in here. She kind of wants to leave, but I don't want her annoying Aloha right now. So, hey, come on up. There you go. See? Cat on demand. Question about binding coils. Do you think they could make a version that could show up in normal raid roulette? They could. Will they? Probably not. I think they probably should at this point. I think enough people. The way they look at it as is if you really want to do the story, then you can unsync it, right? And the problem with a normal raid roulette version of it is the same problem we have with the Crystal Tower, in that we will all get funneled to coil. If they make a story mode normal version of it, we will all get funneled to coil. And I don't think a lot of us want that. I don't think that's the reason they're holding it back. I think it is just because they see it as, I can just unsync it and get it done. And that's all that really needs to happen if they want to see the story. But I have a personal concern about the health of the normal raid roulette if we have a level 50 normal raid roulette. It's already almost every time Alexander, because Alexander's the first one. So all that would really change is we just get coil more often than not. So that's probably one of the big reasons. Hashtag with happy Mondays. When did did I say something last week to just change it around randomly or anything like that? Anyway, hi, hope you're doing well. First time asker, welcome. You said previously that O4S has the best door boss, final boss design of every 4th floor. At least I think, yeah, I've said that. That's correct. You didn't elaborate on what made O4S the best 4th floor they ever designed. So I want to be clear. It's not the best 4th floor fight they've ever designed. It's the best door to final boss transition that they've done. A, the actual transition is amazing. But B, the big thing is, it is a short door boss, a mechanically intense, tight DPS and heal check door boss, followed by a 12-minute, fittingly difficult second form. It is not 2 7 to 8 minute fights back to back, which I think is the inferior design choice, because both of those fights end up being just long enough to be considered kind of their own fight, but too short to really have anything interesting. Anything interesting happen during Prague. I think that one reason Neo X Death kind of worked is because Stormblood did the whole repeat in the second half design, which I don't think is a good thing. So that might be part of the problem. But I just hate this 2 7.5 to 8 minute bosses back-to-back thing. It just doesn't feel like a door boss into a final boss. You get a checkpoint and then you have to reprog the first boss or redo the first. I'd just rather have a short door boss and long prog on the second final phase. So I just think it's the better design overall. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. It's only hashtag Mr. technically and then Happy Monday, but you know what? It's all there technically. I hope you're having a good week. I got one question, more like asking for advice. I've been stuck on P6S. I have the mechanics down packed. I can go multiple runs without messing up. I'm a warrior main. I use tinctures. I use food with no skills. Wait, and the food with... Oh, you're saying you're using the food that doesn't have skill speed. Okay. Still stuck on enrage. I mean, you're one person. A fight is 8 people. But there's nothing you can do. You just have to keep going into the party finder and win eventually. That's it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. I have a question regarding purgation in P7S on Black Mage. How do you think the devs intended for Black Mages to do it? I can do the mechanic with full uptime, but it required me learning how to have cursed non-standard transpose stuff. Otherwise, I'd have long stretches of the mechanic where I'm just not doing anything. Doesn't really seem doable on standard Black Mage unless you're going to push your luck with all the ethereal teleporting. You should only need 1 or 2 instant casts per movement during purgation, because you should be casting until people are in the center, then manipping to them, then using 1 or 2 instant casts to get to your spot. And if you're a Black Mage, they should be making you do the least amount of movement in order to get to your spot there. And then just repeat. It should be 1 ethereal manipulation per set of AoEs that go off, followed by 1 or 2 instant casts each. So big thing is, and I know a lot of people who don't have a ton of experience in endgame raids kind of think past this point. If you need to hold triple casts and not use them during 2s on Black Mage, you need to hold triple casts and not use them during 2s. Sometimes you just have to commit triple casts. You have to commit swift casts. You have to deliberately use sharp casts to get procs, and specifically on things you know that you can use at specific points. It's a lot of education. Now, I have not done purgation on Black Mage, so I can't give you the exacts. I can't tell you to sharp cast this and then use this during that movement. But I can guarantee you that there are Black Mages that know the answer to that question. So it's just a matter of thinking a little bit more outside the box about how you want to do your movement. But you 100% need to be ethereal manipulating, at least back to the middle of the room. Whatever close to the max distance is, have a party member that is responsible for getting you there at a certain point, and you will take care of the rest after that. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey Haps, hi. I'm thinking about playing Final Fantasy IV again. Nice. I've played a little too much of it as of late myself. But I cannot choose between the DS version or remastered Steam version. Are you referring to the Pixel remaster? Because the DS version is on Steam, technically. If you're talking about the Pixel remaster versus the DS version that's on Steam, I would recommend the Pixel remaster. Final Fantasy IV 3D has some merits. It has the augment system, which I actually think is done terribly. It's cool if you already know everything about the game and can abuse it, it's awful as a new player. And if you've never experienced it before, like you literally can't do it without a guide. It's torture without a guide. I think the bonus bosses are terrible in Final Fantasy IV 3D. The voice acting is okay. There's a few big names, but for the most part, it's kind of a joke. And it's just a slower game overall. It's a little bit harder if you're looking for something that's more challenging. That's the best reason to pick up Final Fantasy IV 3D. If you are just looking to play Final Fantasy IV and have something closer to the base experience, Pixel Remaster is the way to go. There's only one real thing that I think the Pixel Remaster, it doesn't even screw it up, but again, the 3D version has a leg up over it. It is items. If I'm not mistaken, Final Fantasy IV 3D has better on-item uses. Things like the Stardust Rod or the Healing Staff and whatnot. Whereas the Pixel Remaster, they are pretty much only good at the start of the game, and thus the Stardust Rod is not good for most of the game. And you get it so late in that its main power is just kind of completely wasted outside of its base stats. So those are like those are the two advantages for the 3D version. I would recommend Pixel Remaster. I think the soundtrack's better. I think the gameplay is smoother. And I don't think any of the things added by the 3D version are worth picking it up other than the added difficulty. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Now that 6.2 has been out for about 2 months. Do you have a favorite song from it? Is it Scream? Might be Scream. Scream's up there. Because two of the big songs are Final Fantasy IV classics. Then you have Scream, Silent Scream, Whitestone Black, and Embers. And the thing is, Criterion gets new music too. Like, we've heard the Criterion music in the trailer, and it's amazing. I love the way it sounds. The Omicron Zone might have something really cool. Hildebrand probably just has Hildebrand music, so. I'm going to go with Scream. Yeah, Scream is a big one. Whitestone Black is a little more Devil May Cry, and I really like that because I'm a huge Devil May Cry fan. But I think Scream is going to be my winner for 6.2 so far. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, hi. I started late in Shadowbringers and set aside a lot of that era's content once Endwalker came around. I'm getting back to them now and finished The Weapon in Eden last week. You made your disdain for Nier quite clear, but do you think it's worth doing once? And should I enjoy blissful ignorance? You should do it and figure out if you like it. I hate it. And by the way, I don't hate Nier. I played Drakengard 1. I've seen all the endings to that. I didn't like playing Nier Automata, but I have gone out of my way to enjoy that. I've watched all the videos describing the various novels that connect the different games, Nier Automata, Drakengard 1, all that. Like, I've consumed it. I'm well versed in the Yoko Taro aspects, even if none of it really comes to mind all the time. Sometimes I see things and I just can't remember them. But you should play it and decide for yourself if you like it, because no one else's opinion matters as much as yours. Hashtag Mr. Happy with Monday. What did I say last week? See, I don't even remember what I said last week. You expect me to remember the entire Yoko Taro verse? The Drakengard verse? In your latest video, you kind of imply you've played Monster Hunter before. Yeah, a little bit. Little bit. Yeah, a little bit. What's your favorite monster and game in the series? So I have not played most of the games in the series. I have played a little bit of For You. I have played World, and I have played Rise. Those are the three. I've watched a friend play some of the older ones, but that doesn't really count. I don't really have a favorite monster all that much because I just don't. I don't have that kind of connection with the monsters because I'm just killing them. Like, I just don't. It doesn't. I've had experiences with a lot of monsters. I got more. Probably have more that I hate than ones that I love. And not to say that I don't like them so much as I will opt out of selecting them if I'm able to avoid them in when I'm selecting missions. Yeah, no, I don't really have a favorite. I can just tell you that Zora Magdaros should just never exist. That's like the one thing I'll say about it. And I never played Frontier, so it doesn't matter much to me. And I think this is the last one. I think the rest are all just comments. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hola, Senor Feliz. That's not how you spell Senor. Maybe in Portuguese it is actually. Okay, I don't know that. I'm not too well versed in Portuguese Spanish. In the Q&A, Yoshida mentioned they were looking at removing dependence on Manatix for non-standard Black Mage rotations. No, they just said removing Manatix because right now, you can play a game of guess the number of mana ticks you're going to get, or you can play around your mana tick in such a way that you can get back into fire a spell faster if you really want to. It's not that big of a deal, but sometimes the rotation is just not consistent depending on when you get the mana tick. Or just transpose usages in general, I believe. Do you have any idea what kind of changes? I think the only thing they're going to change, because again, this isn't for non-standard rotations they're talking about in particular. They are just talking about how the mana tick being inconsistent can affect your rotation. Because sometimes you do need to do these like weird transpose tricks in order to get through certain mechanics, certain phases, etc., a little bit more smoothly. And the MP regeneration of those phases can be rough. But I mean, that's what you're opting into when you choose to go down that route. The only thing I could see them doing is making your mana tick set based on the number of spells you cast. Like maybe like when you swap to ice, you're at 0. But you know, Blizzard 4 gives you 4,000. Like maybe Blizzard 4, they get rid of the cast and it gives you 4,000. And Thunder 3, instead of having a cost, gives you 3,000. And then, what's it called? Paradox gives you another 3,000 or something. Now you're back at 10,000 and you can swap back to fire and everything will be A-okay. Them adding some sort of consistency like that is more so what I imagine them doing, and less specifically making modifications for weird transpose optimizations and an off-standard, I guess, rotations that sometimes people do for fun. But we don't know. They say they have a solution, so they'll have a solid answer. Those are just a few guesses off the top of my head. As for the other comments that were there, some people telling me to play some ROM hacks for Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy Tactics, a few comments on 2-minute buff windows, Omega. Somebody telling me to put money away for taxes, which, yeah, I've been paying my taxes consistently for my whole life that I've owed taxes. So I'm pretty well in tune with how taxes work. That was a bit weird. Somebody appreciating my Billy Madison reference. You go find that fucking dog. I don't know why that was on my mind. It's just as I was saying it, I was like, this is really a Billy Madison energy moment. But people liking the new outro music. That is the Mr. Happy song, by the way. That is not available anywhere else, but right here. Had that done by Popsky. So he did a fantastic job on that. And then so I'm talking about Reaper Burst phase, but I can tell you, person who commented about the Reaper Burst phase, that is not how you do your 2 minutes on Reaper. That I can wholeheartedly assure you is not how you do your 2 minutes on Reaper. So go take a look at the Balance Discord. It's got all the fancy tricks to do all the Enshroud windows and crazy stuff like that. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for me for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Again, if you have not subscribed to the VOD channel, be sure to go check it out. If any of the games that I mentioned are of interest to you, just seeing a playthrough of them, or even like my old Final Fantasy XIV stuff that I'm going to be uploading to there, like my Endwalker playthrough, my 6.0 playthrough proper, and then also 6.3, 6.4, like major content playthroughs are going to be going on to the VOD channel, and when they're like super long form content. Hildebrand, for example, is going to go on there when I do it in this coming patch. But some things will still be going on this channel. You'll still be seeing me post like first clears of Criterion and Criterion Savage and stuff. So it's going to be a mix of things. But if you haven't, go subscribe over there. Don't forget the sponsors below the video. Thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. And if you have a question for next week's episode, be sure to ask your questions in the comments below. With that, I will see you all in the next video. Until then, y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.